Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, we're going to do just a brief departure from some of our normal presentations. Before we call this meeting to order, I did want to call before us Jackie Mazzeo with our Laughlin Rotary, and we do have a community presentation, which I'm glad all of you will be here to be able to see. So, Jackie, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jackie Laughlin. I am President and CEO of the Laughlin Chamber and Executive Director of the Laughlin Tourism Commission, except right now we're standing here on behalf of the Laughlin Rotary Club. We're very small, but we're very mighty, and we have two programs that we're working on right now. It's a quarterly first responders recognition program, and another one is a monthly student recognition program for the students up at our only school. We're actually recognizing only high school students at this time, right? Yes. So Gino Briscoe, if you could please come to the front. Yay! He already knows how much I love him, but just now, 30 minutes ago, he saved me. We had a sleeper on the back porch, and he came over and helped me trespass him. Thank you, Gino. You're always there for me. Sergeant Gino Briscoe started his career with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department on August 1st, 1986. During his time with the department, he has worked in several assignments to include field training officer, narcotics detective, and Laughlin Searchlight Residence Section. On May 8th, 1999, he promoted to sergeant and was assigned to the Downtown Area Command. Thank God you're not there anymore. Sergeant Briscoe has spent the last 22 years assigned to the Laughlin substation. His work at the Laughlin substation extends from policing to managing the substation's volunteer program. Yay! And taking time to meet directly with citizens in the area. After COVID, Sergeant Briscoe helped to raise money for the Santa Cop program, along with spending time at the area schools to pass out backpacks, appearing on the radio to educate the citizens on crime and prevention. While working with the Laughlin and Searchlight community, Sergeant Briscoe has become part of the community in addition to living in the community. I am amazed how hard he works, and he always has a smile on his face. His positive attitude in the work environment is contagious, and the officers on his squad work at a high level to show their appreciation and respect for his leadership style. Sergeant Briscoe wears the call sign 500 to signify the highest ranking supervising sergeant of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Sergeant Briscoe wears this ranking with pride and does exemplary work. The citizens of Laughlin and Searchlight know him as Gino. His passion to help people cannot be matched. Sergeant Briscoe's years of service has exceeded retirement requirements, yet he gladly chooses with pride to continue his service as a member of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and especially to the Laughlin and Searchlight community. Sergeant Briscoe exemplifies the saying, the measurement of your success is not by your rank or position, but by the contributions that you make to your community. So on behalf of the Laughlin Rotary Club, we present you with the First Responder of the Quarter Award, and you should probably get it every quarter. But a short story, during COVID, he went with me and pounded the bushes, and we vaccinated and tested every homeless person that we could find. And it was truly your mission. I saw you every day out there with passion trying to find those who needed testing, and I thank you so much for taking on us and babysitting us while we pounded the bushes too. So thank you very much.
Get one of the three together.
Oh, please.
Without the box.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say I'm honored to be recognized for work that is just common. I enjoy it. That's why I've been here so long in Laughlin on the department. So this is great, but your affection is much greater. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you that don't know, one of the great things we have about this community is our local police and their dedication. I believe they're also, Clark County, we're also hiring for this location.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
so-
please.
Just so the public is aware of that, anyone that has an interest and stuff to serve the Laughlin
Metro and
community.
fire.
Yeah. So with that, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is the April 12th, 2022 meeting of the Laughlin Town Advisory Board. I do need to call this to order. So, and I'll go ahead with some housekeeping information to be read into the minutes. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order, and the board may combine two or more agenda items for consideration. The board may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item at any time. No action may be taken on any matter not listed on the posted agenda. All planning and zoning matters at this meeting are forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners Zoning Commission, otherwise known as the BCC, or the Clark County Planning Commission, PC, for final action. Please take a moment to turn off or mute all cell phones or electronic devices. We have a lot of you here today, so if you'll just take a moment to check those for us. Please take all private conversations outside the room here. And within 48 hours, advance request, a sign language interpreter, or other reasonable efforts to assist and accommodate persons with physical disabilities may be made available by calling 702-455-3530, TDD at 702-385-7486, or Relay Nevada toll-free at 800-326-6868. Supporting material provided to the board for this meeting may be requested from Tammy Harris, our secretary, at 702-298-0828. And supporting material is or will be available at the Clark County Department of Administrative Services, 500 South Grand Central Parkway in Las Vegas. And supporting material is or will be available on the county's website at clarkcountynv.gov /Laughlin TAB. Also at the back of the room, there is a table there, and some of the information, if you'd like to pick up pertaining to today's meeting, is there for your resources as well. Before you, your board consists of Pamela Walker, and I'll go ahead with a roll call. Pamela Walker.
Present.
Here. Herman Walker is absent. He is under the weather today. Fred Doughton.
Here.
Present. Kathleen Haas, Vice Chair.
Here.
And myself, Kathy Oakes, your chair. Our secretary to my left is Tammy Harris, and she can be reached at 702-298-0828. Her email is tammy.harris, HARRIS, at clarkcountynv.gov. Our business address for the secretary is at Clark County Department of Administrative Services, 500 South Grand Central Parkway. Our county liaison, again to my left, is Mark Moskowitz, and he can be reached again at 702-298-0828 or 702-455-6173. His email is Mark Moskowitz, MARK .MOSKOWITZ at clarkcountynv.gov. This has been our call to order, and if I can please ask you to stand for our invocation, led by Pastor Doug Wesley. And, no, I'm sorry, Father Charlie, I did not see you there. I'm so, thank you. Be led by Father Charlie, and I'll go ahead and lead our Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please stand.
I did a little bit of research, and I found out, according to the 2020 census, Nevada has 16 counties, and of them, Nye County is the largest, with over 18,000 square miles of landmass. Clark County, while not the largest, is the most populous, with over 2.27 million people. Little Laughlin is 89.4 square miles, and according to the census, we have 8,660 people as of 2020. We're not the largest in the state. We're not the largest in the county. We're not the most populous, but we are a very special place here along the banks of the majestic Colorado River. We're kind of a postcard in time, if you will. We ask Almighty God that He would always bless us, but especially in this season of Passover and Easter, bless us to become that people and that place we're designed and destined to become. Amen.
Thank you, Father. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I'll now move forward to the public comments section of our meeting. This period is devoted to comments by the general public about items that are on today's agenda. No discussion, action, or vote may be taken on this agenda item. You'll be afforded the opportunity to speak on individual public hearing items at the time they are presented. If you wish to speak to the board about items within its jurisdiction but not appearing on today's agenda, you must wait until the comments by general public period listed at the end of today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and please step up to our speaker's podium and state your name and address for the record, and please spell your last name. We are recorded here, and it's much easier for our secretary to, when she transcribes the minutes, to actually type out your name correctly. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of a presentation, this will be done by the chairperson or the board by a majority vote. I do see a number of you in the audience here today. And that pertains to some of our agenda items that we do have. So we are limiting, in the ability to get through any public comments, we are limiting those to 3 minutes. I'll defer to staff.
Yep, so
Please.
we'll have a few items where what we'll do is we'll have the presenter go up, present the item. Once that closes, we will open it up to public comment. We'll give everybody 3 minutes so it's fair and everyone gets a chance to speak. We won't be having a back and forth with the presenter because we won't get a lot accomplished. Once we're done with the public comment, the board will have the chance to ask questions. During that time, all the agencies that are on these items, they will be taking notes and they'll be able to have a chance to answer questions. So that should be able to keep it running smoothly, running quickly, make sure everyone is having their voices heard. So that's how we're going to move through with the agenda. And we'll make that announcement before each item so people are aware.
That way it'll be more informative and easier to follow, and just no chaos with any of these agenda items. I think we think that's the best way to proceed. So at this point, I'll go ahead and open to public comment that we may have. And again, these are for items that appear on today's agenda. However, specific items, as they are called, you'll be allowed an opportunity to speak to that as well. So if anyone would like to approach the podium and speak to any items pertaining to today's agenda. All right. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close. I'm sorry, sir, please. Sure, please step up to the podium. The microphone is there for recording. Okay.
My name is Michael Bohannon. I live at Bohannon. I live at 305 East Minister Court in Henderson, Nevada. I've been a resident in Clark County since birth. I've been here my whole life in Las Vegas and Henderson area. I guess I did bring a little thing. So, I just want to start off by thanking everybody for being here. If there's ever been a moment in my life that I insist on my voice being heard, right now is that moment. On April 3rd, 2021, at around 4 or so p.m., my lovely wife and 2 daughters and myself were splashing in the water on the banks of the river across from the riverside. We were absolutely loving the sun and looking at all of the pretty rocks on the shore. We left to do that. Hi, Isabella. I was throwing a football with a young man that was hanging at the beach with us, or with his family, who was, hanging out next to us, picnicking. With zero warning, an out-of-control jet ski that was actually rented by the family that was picnicking next to us. Ran over my wife, my daughter, both my daughters. Before I had a chance to even react, the jet ski had completely beached itself on top of my wife. I ran over to the jet ski, pulled her out from underneath it. I looked over at my oldest daughter, Angelica, and determined she was standing under her own power. And this is the exact moment when I discovered that my precious 7-year-old Isabella had been struck by the ski. She took that jet ski straight to her temple, basically full throttle. She was laying there. In fact, this is what I was wearing. This is my daughter's blood. She was bleeding from everywhere. It was obviously bad. I'm fairly certain that she, passed away at least once in my arms. Luckily, we were able to get her to an ambulance. And by the way, thank you, first responders. You guys weren't there, but thank you, Metro, Bullhead City Police Department, Fire Department. We got Isabella to a helicopter at Western Arizona Regional Medical Center, where she was flown. She was flown to Sunrise Hospital with bilateral dissection of her carotid arteries. Her whole face was fractured. She had bleeds. She had strokes. She had brain surgeries. She had her skull removed. She was flown to Salt Lake, where they put a stent in her brain to fix the arteries. This little girl fought like I've never seen before, and she's right there. Thank God that she's here with us, and this story could be very different very fast, and I understand that for many people it has been very different. No happy ending. These jet skis are incredibly powerful machines. I don't even know how to ride one. There's people out riding on that river that don't know how to ride them. How could they? How could anybody know how to ride a jet ski after watching a 9-minute video? What does that do? There should be a requirement that anybody riding a jet ski for any reason have some type of training. The one time I did ride a jet ski when I was a teenager, I had a blast. The lake was full. There was no obstructions. There was nobody around, and I had somebody with me at all times.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you letting us know and making this very personal.
It
because
is very personal.
And we're here today. We're going to be hearing from many people. And
Absolutely.
we're here to try and find a solution to the issue that we face on both sides of the river. And I
Absolutely.
will-
That's why I'm here, is to ask you folks to join Bullhead and try to find a solution. If you're not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem.
and I understand that, and I appreciate you coming before us and showing us the reality of
is
what
the
it is that
reality.
we actually do, something
The
that is
same
part of our
weekend-
community.
The same weekend that she got hit, there was many life lights. The very next weekend, a man died right in front of his family. This has been going on and going on and going on. It's time to do something about it. If you're not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem.
We understand, and that's why we are having this meeting today. And thank you for your time, and God bless you. And we're very happy you made a great recovery. I'm very glad to have you here before us. You're a great testament to your strength. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone else that would like to speak, please.
Hi, Chairwoman, board members, staff. My name is Toby Cotter. I'm the city manager in Bullhead City, so it's great to be here. Years and years ago, I used to actually have a standing item on your agenda when I was the PIO for Bullhead City, so this is kind of like a little walk down memory lane for me, so it's good to be
Been a
with
little while.
It's
I've
been
been here
yeah.
20 years, so it's been a little while.
It's been a bit, but things have certainly changed for me. I'm the city manager, and just so you know, I think all three mayoral candidates are here who are running for election in Bullhead City, along with some of our council members. And I think primarily they're all here to talk about water safety. So we do our meetings a little bit differently, where we actually call to the public. It can only be something not on the agenda. So I'm probably asking more of a question than anything. When would it be the appropriate time for them to give you any opinion if they have any, whether that be now, or I see there's an item on your agenda where you're receiving an informational report from one of your state officials?
Yeah, I could. So thank you, Toby. So I think what would be best is if we wait until Nevada Department of Wildlife is able to do their presentation. I think that's really good because they're able to give a lot of background and they're able to let people know jurisdictional, who's in charge and stuff like that. And then that gives everyone kind of like those questions might pop into their mind once the presentation's done, and then we'll give everyone the allotted time to go up there and speak, so that yes, people are allowed to speak at the prior to the public, the items, but I think it might lose some of its traction of actually after the item. So I would suggest, my opinion is to have everyone wait until we go over each item, because we do have a pretty full agenda today. I know we've got some pretty big items, and I think to make everything work and everyone to get a chance and not be tuckered out, I think if we do it that way, but the board will give you the final approval.
Yes, I do think it'll be more timely, and it'll be able to answer the questions more directly, the individuals that are actually boots on the ground dealing with it on a daily basis. I will tell you that, the board ourselves, we're not dealing with the responses and things on a daily basis. The individuals that we have to present jurisdictionally are aware of what's going on and the possible solutions. So I think they would have much more knowledge and be able to speak more directly to the concerns of the audience. We all know the overall premise, but the details as far as what can be done. And I know Bullhead City, I've been to your chamber, or your, not chamber meetings, but your board meetings too, on this particular instance. And so we brought those people here today, and it's our hope that, we get information out and we get contact information going forward for a solution.
Very good. And I appreciate that. Thank you for that explanation. And just a quick 20 seconds, I just want to thank all the Laughlin residents who work with us. We do have so many things in common, and we don't thank each other enough, because there are support services on both sides of the river, our police, our fire, your metro. The public doesn't see that, but we help each other every day. And so whether it's through the commissioner and Commissioner Knaff's office or through our city council, the support that our two communities have for each other, we're building a bridge together. We help the homeless together. We have other social service programs, but we also have an economy that's based on a duality that we both have. You have something in Laughlin we don't. We have some things in Bull that you don't. And it's not a jealousy issue. It's a fact that we can make this economy work together. And so I just want you to know that we appreciate Laughlin, and we appreciate the partnership with you all and your agencies in Bullhead City. Thank you.
Yes, and I will also add to that, Toby, in 20 years that I've served, I think the relationship that we're having now between intergovernment with the county staff, with the commissioner that we have, because I've been here since Bruce Woodbury, I think we have some of the best relations from both sides of the river that we've had in more than 20 years that I can speak to. It's coming along, and we're working much better together from a community, from a resources division, from our mutual aid policies and stuff. I've seen that going much better in just recent years than it has in 2 decades.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anyone else in the public comment section, before I close that would like to speak? Again, if you're here, pertaining to the water safety, that is an agenda item that we do have, and you'll be afforded an opportunity to speak and also to have a great deal more of your questions answered by the representatives at that time when that agenda item is heard. So is there anyone else that would like to speak in the public comment section? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the comment or the public section for items that appear on today's agenda. I will now call for a motion in 2 parts, if that's okay with the board. Approval of the minutes for the March 8th, 2022 meeting, and approval of today's agenda for April 12th, 2022, to hold, combine, or delete any items.
So moved.
I have one motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Informational items will begin today by receiving a report from South County Liaison Mark Moskowitz. Mark, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to thank Chair Oakes for joining me at the Spirit of the Land art exhibit on March 25th at the Marjorie Barrick Museum at UNLV. It was a great turnout. A lot of local artists were there presenting art, which was a fascinating event. If you do get a chance, it's running at UNLV from March 25th to July 23rd. However, there are 2 satellite exhibits as well. There's one in Searchlight from March 25th to July 23rd at the Searchlight Community Center, as well as here locally at the Laughlin Library from April 10th to June 25th. So I encourage everyone to make a stop in each one. It's very fascinating, and a lot of local artists that we work with and know very, very well. So
And art that is stimulated and inspired from this community, from
Yes.
This area.
yes. So that was wonderful. And then 2 other real quick things. I want to thank Clark County Department of Real Property Management for repainting our building. It looks very, very nice. They are also doing the parking lot out there, so I apologize if it was a little difficult, but we're getting some much needed little revisions to this building, and I just want to let them know that we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward to item number 2 is receive a report from Lieutenant Rogers, Metro Police, regarding activity and statistics during the past month and other area crime concerns, which of course the Harley Run will be part of that today.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, board members. Thanks for the introduction. Lieutenant Grant Rogers here from the Laughlin Substation Commander. Just to give a quick report on our stats, last month in the city of Laughlin, we responded to 385 calls. That's up 8% from the previous month and up a little bit from last year. So with COVID getting over and it getting warmer, we are getting a little bit busier here on the policing side of Laughlin. As far as traffic tickets, we wrote 275 tickets last month for the incorporated Laughlin area. We made 4 arrests for DUI, 4 arrests for domestic violence, and our Tucker holding facility, we completed 29 arrests or bookings here, which is just a conglomerate of different events. As far as events, last month we had our kind of first or introduction of, we call it Coffee with a Cop, which is just kind of, there's no agenda, there's no items, it's just getting out in the community and having citizens come and speak with us, share a cup of coffee or water or soda. We had some Cinnabons donated, which was nice. So we had a good turnout. It was at the American Legion last month. So our plan is to kind of take this show on the road and kind of like a little once a month road show. So this month we've met with the Crown Point Apartments. Now you don't have to live there to show up. So on May 4th at 10 a.m., it will be our second installment of Coffee with a Cop. So feel free to show up for anybody in the room that wants to come and have a cup of coffee, have a question, concern, We get anything from car break-ins to dog barking to response times. So any kind of questions anyone has, we're available. We're there. And then moving on to the second topic, as Kathy said earlier, we are hiring law enforcement support technician. It's kind of a fancy word. It's kind of maybe a little confusing. It's a civilian position. If you've ever needed services here at the substation, when you come to the front counter, one of the ladies that work there that does the fingerprint, the CCW permits, take a report, that's what a support technician does. We are in the midst of hiring. That is one of the jobs that our police department hires locally here for Laughlin. You don't have to go to Vegas for training, or you can be hired directly into the city of Laughlin. Now, to be one of our police officers or corrections officers, we are hiring for both of those, but the academies are in Vegas, and for your first 3 years of training, you will be assigned to in Vegas, and after those 3 years, you can test to come down here to work in Laughlin. So just so in case anybody's looking for a job or wanting to join the force, then those are our options right now. And that's really all I have as far as stats and community events. We are working with Don at Principal Estes at the high school. Before school gets out, we are going to do a safety assembly for all the students, which will cover, I know the topic today, water safety, but it'll cover a lot of items, and there'll probably be about 3 or 4 different law enforcement speakers that'll touch on items for the kids for the summer, and as far as the pool and those type of things. So those are things that we're projecting out for the next couple months. And then any questions from the board?
Just what is your anticipation for the Harley Run that we have coming up?
Yes, very good question. So if everybody should be aware, the original Laughlin River Run is not going to occur this year. It's kind of been rebranded. There's going to be a Colorado River Run and a Bullhead City River Run, is what the websites say. So my department or myself, we've met with the chief of police over in Bullhead City, and we're just working a joint operation. What we anticipate is a lot of events and activities on the other side of the river, and then most of the attendees staying on our side of the river. So most of the casinos have hired overtime officers, so that comes out of their budget, not the taxpayers' budget. And then I'll also bring down a couple extra squads just as contingency in case the crowd's a little bit bigger than we think. That way it's not an hour-and-a-half response time. So we should have an additional probably 25 officers in town for both weekends, that Thursday through Sunday morning. But as far as right now, besides one property hosting a tattoo convention, there isn't anything major on our side of the river. Most of the events are on the other side. But we do anticipate it being busy.
Any questions from the board? No?
Just one quick thing.
Please.
So there's a lot of people here today that haven't seen at previous meetings being here for the last month. We do want to stick to the 3-minute time frame just to have a respect for everybody that's in the room. You cannot borrow someone else's time. You get your 3 minutes. Unfortunately, a few months ago, we did have to ask somebody to leave that wasn't adhering to, the board is in charge here today. So please feel free. I don't want to curb anyone's enthusiasm or anybody's passion for what we're here to speak about today, but come up in here, use your 3 minutes, be respectful to everybody that's in the room, and then have a seat and just be a good active listener. If that doesn't take place, unfortunately, then we will have to ask you to leave. So, awesome.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And moving forward, item number 3 is receive a report from Clark County Fire Department regarding calls for service during the past month and other fire prevention issues. There we are. Hello. I can't see everybody. There's too many of you. Love it.
Good afternoon. My name is Damon Remley, Ruemmele. I'm at Station 85. I'm a captain over in Bilbray. I don't have a lot to report to you guys this month outside of call volume. For the month of March, both stations combined, there's 2, if you guys are unaware. We ran 304 calls. That's a 30% increase for the same month in 2021. And year to date, so far, we've run 813 calls, which represents a 17.3% increase. We haven't had any major events to speak of. We're finalizing some of the training that we spoke about last month when I presented. We have probably 3 or 4 new personnel out to the Laughlin stations, so they should be all trained up pretty soon. Since I am a stand-in, I'm not the one who's normally here. I was unaware of the big budget item, the big agenda item pertaining to water safety. So I'm going to hang in the back. I'll take notes and relay anything that we can to my administration so we can assist in improving water safety as well.
Yes, because you often are responding.
Right.
Yeah, to the any
Exactly.
type of events that happen. Okay.
So do you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions from the board? I'm just curious, do you augment staff for the, what was formerly trademarked and known as the River Run? Do you augment staff for that, or you're not aware?
That was before my time, so I wouldn't be able to speak on that.
Okay.
From what I understood, we would bring crews from in town to supplement, but as
Okay.
far as numbers and things like that, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay.
I can get that if you like, though.
We wouldn't get that information. We're just wondering for the River Run, which is in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So your next time to appear before us would be in 4 weeks. So unless you wanted to give it to Tammy, our secretary.
I will.
But I do appreciate you staying today and listening to the input from the community.
Absolutely.
That's very valuable. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Okay, and then we'll move on to item number 4. And item number 4 is going to appear before us as Joanna Jacob from Clark County Administrative Services will share information about the short-term rental ordinance and receive input from the community. So just to kind of layman's terms, this would be like Airbnb, VRBO type of rentals that are not for like snowbirds or annualized rentals. Please,
And
welcome.
Chair, real quick, so this will be one, while Jan's getting set up, that she'll do a presentation.
Oh,
We'll
I'm
close
sorry.
it. Yep, we'll close it, and then we'll open up to public comment. Everyone get the 3 minutes, and then we'll open up to the board. So when everyone's doing their comment, we'll be taking notes, and Joanne will be able to answer a lot of those questions. She has a really good handout out back, and we'll also put on the screen that has a lot of areas that you can email your comments and stuff. So if you don't think about your comments today, please don't feel like it's the one and done. She's just doing a little kind of like county road show to kind of go around to each town and everything. We've done this in Searchlight before, so we're doing Laughlin. So we're making sure we cover all of our areas. So the floor is yours.
Thanks for the intro, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. Joanna Jacob, and I work for Clark County Administrative Services. I'm also on the lobbying team for Clark County, so that means I go up to Carson City on behalf of the county and work on legislation like the one I want to talk to you about today, which is Assembly Bill 363, which passed in the last legislative session. Unfortunately, it is a mandate on Clark County, which means that we have to do something and we have to pass an ordinance for the county to regulate short-term rentals. As you mentioned, Chair, that is short-term rentals, which is generally a period of under 30 or 31 days. So your classic Airbnb or Vrbo, Expedia type of short-term rentals if you're traveling someplace on vacation. Previously, prior to passage of this bill, it was Clark County's policy that those short-term rentals were not permitted in the county. So the legislature has mandated that we pass an ordinance. As Mark mentioned, I did a handout on the bill, just kind of explaining the legislation if anybody has any questions. There are portions of the bill which are mandated provisions that we have to include in the ordinance, and then I've divided it up between areas in which we have some flexibility or local discretion on what to consider for a policy for short-term rentals. As Mark noted, it's kind of a challenge to do an ordinance to cover all of Clark County because we have urban areas and we have rural areas and we have very particular communities. And I have been doing a roadshow to talk to the community about what you would like to see in your community for short-term rentals, if you want to consider having them, if there's some opinions about you would not want to have them in your community, how should we regulate them, what is important to you. There are provisions of the bills that I can go through this, Chair, really quickly and give you a quick overview of the mandated provisions that have to go into the bill. We have to allow them. We have to prohibit short-term rentals in apartments, so no short-term rentals will be permitted in apartments. There is a provision where we have to provide for particular noise parameters in the ordinance and security parking rules. Anybody who rents their property out, that's called a host. And so the host will have to have somebody on staff or on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that there's some element of local response if there's an issue in the community that neighbors can call. Clark County, when we consider our ordinance, I'll just announce it here today, we are actually going to probably contract for a 24-hour hotline that neighbors can use to call. And that hotline is going to operate so that it can deploy either to call Metro or to call code or to call this 24-hour representative,
When you
depending
say
on
code, you mean code
code
enforcement.
enforcement. Yes, ma'am. And this is what is also important is though we must pass a ordinance by July 1st or soon thereafter, we do have to provide a period of 6 months for people to come forward to come into compliance because there's been a great deal of illegal short-term rentals or just people who were doing this without express authorization from the county. The provisions of the bill want those people to come forward and have a path towards licensure. So we have to give them a 6-month period. We've decided, to be fair, we give everybody a 6-month period to come forward on the licensure. And then the bill also requires us to give a 30-day notice of that licensure period. So what that means on the ground is that even though we pass the ordinance perhaps this summer, we probably practically will not be licensing anybody for a period of 7 months thereafter because of that grace period. So that's really, the bill also has some mandatory provisions about distance separation, 660 feet between each property, and also 2,500 feet from any resort property. So that means that any of the areas around your casinos, the 2,500 feet from those, there would be no short-term rentals that are permitted in those areas. There is also a ban on parties. And parties are going to be defined by whatever we set by the maximum amount of people who could be in a short-term rental. So the bill, to make it even more complicated, says the maximum amount of people that we can have in a short-term rental are 16 people. So that is what the legislature has set forth for us, so we don't have any discretion on those provisions. So we can be more restrictive, but we can't be less restrictive in those areas. We do have some flexibility. We can, like I said, be more restrictive, so if we wanted to do greater than 660 feet, we could. We also have some flexibility on the number of licenses that we will issue. What we're going to do is have anybody who wants to be a short-term rental host will apply for a Clark County business license. So the bill requires that you can't have multiple licenses beyond 5. So if you have multiple properties, you would not be able to have more than 5. The Clark County Commission, I'll just note here, this is somewhat out of order, but we did have a discussion item at our board meeting on March 15th where I talked to the board about this bill and got some direction from them about where they want to go. They might want to limit that number of authorizations to only 1 license per person. So you could only have 1 property to start because we have had a proliferation of illegal short-term rentals in the county everywhere. This has been sort of, the board has expressed their preliminary consideration on that. We can also cap the number that we will allow in our area. And we have considered, and what we discussed at the board in March was maybe we would set that cap at a percentage of the amount of available housing in our community. So this is an approach that some other kind of tourist areas have taken when they are struggling with some of the things that we struggle with in the county with affordable housing and workforce housing and housing stock in general versus maybe people wanting to have a short-term rental business. And so how do you strike that balance? So we are modeling this after an approach from San Diego where they capped the total number to about 1% of the total houses in their area. For Clark County, that would mean about 2,800 licenses that we would permit, believe it or not. And we actually looked at that. We do have some flexibility because I really appreciated the invocation and talking about Laughlin as a special place. We do have some flexibility to consider particular rules for each community. So if you would like a cap or a certain number for your community, as Mark noted, this is a good time to send in some comments because we are writing the ordinance right now and creating the policy. So if Laughlin residents have some thoughts about short-term rentals, at the bottom of this handout, that print is super small, but I'll just read it here. We have set up an email address, which is STR, S as in Samuel, T as in Thomas, R as in rat, comment at clarkcountynv.gov. It's at the bottom of the handout if you don't want to write it down. And please send a comment in because we're taking those comments from the community. This is a really important issue for local communities on how we're going to allow this. It may change our communities. And that's what I wanted to let you know. I guess the last thing I'll say, and I'm happy to answer questions because people have had questions about how we are going to enforce short-term rentals, for example, or are there parking rules, any kind of noise issues. I'm happy to discuss this. We must pass an ordinance, or we're aiming to pass an ordinance sometime this summer, so that means that we will introduce our ordinance in June. A first draft might be available. We're working very diligently to get one available by the end of April so that we can go out and you can actually read the ordinance and the policy and then spend specific comments in on the actual language. And I guess I can stop there. I know you have a very busy agenda. I'd be happy to take comments. As Mark noted, I've been doing my roadshow around Clark County, and I have been taking notes on the comments that we get at these meetings so that we can consider them and take them back to the team working on the ordinance in Clark County. So happy to end there, and then answer questions from the board.
Yeah,
after.
Joanna, I just want to clarify for the audience. So what Joanna's done is she's just provided an overall briefing of what the legislation is requiring, and at this point, Clark County does not have a regulation, a statute for enforcement. She is seeking, making the roadshow to town boards, rural areas, and saying, what do you want in your community? So she brought this, and it's at the back table. And if anyone in our audience today has any input, that would be the time. You can submit it there, and you can also ask those questions of Joanna.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just add, since you mentioned enforcement, there are mandatory provisions in the bill. Our challenge is going to be if we are now going to have legal short-term rentals and everybody abides by what we put in our ordinance, we won't have to enforce, right? But we know there may be violations of the ordinance. There are penalties written into the bill for that, but then we may have those who do not seek licensure and have illegal penalties. There are stronger and stiffer penalties in the bill for that category of short-term rentals. The bill does authorize us to go up to $10,000 per day for that conduct, but a very drastically lower penalty for ordinance, things that are legal short-term rentals. We are capped at $1,000 a day or the nightly rental value. It's a very lucrative business. I think you may have seen in the news that there's been a lot of news about the fact that short-term rentals are coming to Clark County, and some speculation about how much revenue may come into our area because of this business model. So we are expecting a lot of applications and a lot of interest in this issue. So I know this has been an issue or a question that we've received from the audience in other communities, so I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Okay. Open it to the public.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay, so at this point, she's provided the presentation on what is coming before us. And if there is anyone in the public that would like to speak to this item, go ahead and take the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close this portion, but I will remind everyone here today, we'd love to have your input, whether you're here for another agenda item or not. And at the back of the room, you do have this where you can put some input. And also from our community leaders in Bullhead City, like Toby, I think they have dealt with this as well. And stuff. And if there's any input you have, get together. We'd love to hear it as well, as you've already dissected this. So, okay, all right.
Thank you very much, Chair and Board
Thank you,
members.
Joanna.
Okay.
All right, then we'll move forward to item number 5, which is to receive a report on water safety and updates from the Nevada Department of Wildlife.
Perfect. And Chair, this is the item where, please be respectful with the 3 minutes. I just want to give some background information. Lieutenant Wilder right here coming up, he has been a great partner with Clark County. He has taken myself and Commissioner Naft on the river in my 11 months down here. I've been on it twice, so and that has to be summer months, but he's done a wonderful job keeping a great partnership with us. They are a state agency, and I always appreciate everything they do. We are great partners. They're aware of the river. He keeps me informed on everything going on. I've been on the river before, and they told me they can sit in the wake zone all day and write tickets nonstop, and it wouldn't even make an impact. So they're aware, but I just want to thank your office as well as yourself for your partnership, as well as our partners at Bullhead City. They've been great with keeping me informed and all that as well. So with that, he will do his presentation and kind of give some information. Please be respectful, and then we'll close it. We'll do public comment, and then we'll do the board. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, my name is Chris Walther, Game Warden Lieutenant, Nevada Department of Wildlife, and I was asked by Mr. Moskowitz to come down and speak a little bit to what we do as Nevada Department of Wildlife for water safety, and thank you for having me. A lot of you may not know what Nevada Department of Wildlife, or NDOW, is. If you've ever seen a game warden show on TV, that's basically what we do. We're responsible for enforcing hunting, fishing, and boating laws within the state of Nevada. Not only that, we're also state police officers. So if we are traveling from Henderson, Boulder City to Laughlin, and we encounter an accident or traffic violation, we're bound with our oath as state police officers to enforce that. So we kind of have a pretty broad spectrum of what we do. I'm the lieutenant of the Southern Region. We have 3 regions: Western Region, which is Reno; Eastern Region, which is Elko; and obviously Southern Region, we're based out of Vegas. Full staffed, I run 13 officers, and we're responsible for covering from Highway 50, which is north Nye County, all the way down to the Avi Casino. So we have quite a big jurisdiction. Basically, it's about 3,500 square miles per officer. Summertime, our primary goal is Lake Mead, Lake Mojave, and the Colorado River in Laughlin. We have a contingency of 11 boats, 2 in Laughlin, 2 on Mojave, and 7 on Lake Mead. In the summertime, this summer, we will not be full staffed with that, which should work out based on the water levels at Lake Mead, which will give me the opportunity potentially to have more officers in Laughlin. We operate on the Colorado River under NRS 171079, which is a interstate compact for jurisdiction on the Colorado River, which gives us the ability to enforce laws 5 miles into the state of Arizona. And vice versa, it gives Arizona Game and Fish the same opportunity, which we work with on the water. And if you're interested in that, I mean, it gives us a certain amount of leeway when it comes to enforcing statutes regarding water safety, but unfortunately it does not cover us in some issues, mainly rental locations in Bullhead City. We have a field office here in Laughlin. I'm sure most of you have seen it. And fully staffed, it's 2 full-time wardens who live in Laughlin. Unfortunately, my one warden who is full-time down here now is on military orders and is overseas and has been since November. He's with the Nevada Air National Guard. So I've made arrangements basically to have at least 2 to 4 wardens in Laughlin starting the beginning of May all the way to the end of September, which would involve them coming down here, leaving their families, staying at our bunkhouse, which sleeps 5 wardens for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then returning home on Monday. So it's a lot to ask for those guys to come down, live out of that bunkhouse, and patrol this river for 4 days and take that time away from their families. But we've all done it. I've done it. I did it for 7 years before I got promoted to lieutenant. And I sympathize with you. I've seen this before. I've seen it too many times, and I know exactly what you've gone through. And from my standpoint, it's terrible. I agree 100%. Unfortunately, I think with the COVID pandemic, we all know when everything shut down, where did people go? They went outside. They came to Lake Mead, they came to Lake Mojave, they came to the Colorado River. Prior to the pandemic, yes, we were always busy, but the post-pandemic levels, I think, have increased exponentially and have created a much more difficult environment for us to work in. If you can imagine a game warden dressed exactly as I am out on the water from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, all day long, dealing with everything that we have to deal with out there. It's a lot. It takes a mental toll. It takes a physical toll. We try to do everything we can. Unfortunately, the majority, I have 2 boats out of Laughlin. Arizona Game and Fish may have 2 boats, and Bullhead may have 2 boats. So that's 6 vessels on that one stretch of river from Davis Dam basically to Community Park. That's 6 vessels in that area, and I could use 12 more to deal with what we have to deal with down there. There's not enough of us to go around, and there's just a lot of people. So we deal with it the best way that we can. Holiday weekends, I will have 4 wardens from Friday morning until Monday afternoon for Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, every holiday weekend. And usually those are the biggest weekends. We found that depending on the water release from Davis Dam, we can't even launch our boats if we're less than 3 units. If those of you are familiar with that, because we run prop boats, I can't even get one of my boats in the water. Fortunately, Bullhead City and Arizona Game and Fish run jet boats. They can run in lower water levels, but if we have an incident that we have to deal with and we don't have the water flow out of Davis Dam, it's very difficult for us to respond.
Lieutenant, if I could have you just speak to the microphone,
Yeah,
because it's recorded, so we're not picking you up.
Again, we run 2 boats out of Laughlin, and I run the 1 boat out of Catherine's Landing with 1 warden on that boat. As far as our 2021 stats, my agency took 34 reportable accidents, and these were accidents that occurred in Nevada jurisdictional waters. So if you had a state line that ran through the, right down the middle of the river, those were accidents that occurred in Nevada. If we take an accident on Davis Camp, for instance, we will take the initial accident, investigate the scene, but then that accident then gets turned over to Arizona Game and Fish, and it gets reported by their agency even though we took it. And they do the same for us. We had 6 OUIs operating under the influence on a vessel or drugs. That number could be way higher. The problem we have with conducting an OUI investigation on the water is it's not a static environment as with a vehicle. You're dealing with a jet ski or a boat. You're dealing with an individual in a bathing suit. You're dealing with trying to do seated field sobriety tests on a vessel in the middle of the river as you're floating downriver. It's difficult from a warden standpoint, but then also transporting to Fisherman's Access, securing both vessels, transporting to Tucker Holding Facility, and then processing. I mean, that's a 3 to 4 hour ordeal for a warden if we do not need to get a blood draw. So what that does is then that takes one of my patrol officers off the water and leaves one of my vessels on the water for the rest of the afternoon. It's difficult at best. We did respond to 1 fatal incident last year, which didn't necessarily report as a vessel accident or a boat accident. It was an individual who was trying to launch his boat, and he had a medical episode while trying to launch his boat and ended up floating downriver, and we recovered him. We had 9 vessel incidents with injury beyond first aid in Nevada waters, and we had 7 vessel incidents that were, so we have a reporting threshold in the state of Nevada for an accident, and it's a $2,000 requirement. So we had 7 vessel incidents with non-injury that were over the $2,000. Most of the PWC incidents that we respond to, if there is a large amount of damage, usually when we roll up on scene, that is what we want to see, because that means the jet skis hit each other. If there is no damage to either of the ski, that's the incident we don't want to see, because that means that ski hit somebody instead of the ski. We've taken multiple individuals off the water who've had active warrants in the state of Nevada. And then we've had 4 incidents where we've had PWCs run into our vessels that we had to report on. And it, again, my 5+ years patrolling the water in Laughlin as an officer on one of the vessels, it's amazing to me that we have not had an officer severely injured or killed on this water from doing what we do. So I just wanted to give you a quick background on us. If you are on the water and you do have an issue, you can utilize a 911 dispatch, which will go to Metro's dispatch center, and they will then notify my dispatch, who will dispatch us. But again, there's just not enough of us to go around. Regarding rentals, and I know that's a hot topic, if you are so inclined, in NRS 488295, it's a statute regarding liveries, which is the rental operations. And again, the majority of the rental operations that run down here are through Bullhead City. And as of my last count, I believe 4 to 6 were on the Nevada side that I actually have jurisdiction over. In accompanying to that, NAC 488350 goes into more detail as to what the rental companies are required to do. And to be honest with you, it's not a very extensive list of requirements for the rental company. Some of these laws are way before my time. They may not necessarily be antiquated, but they could be updated. And unfortunately, all I can do is enforce what's in the NRS and the NAC. It's up to the residents, it's up to individuals to contact their representatives, contact their legislatures to make a change in this. And I can assure you that, you know, every time we go out on the water, we do our very best to try to make sure that everybody is safe, but we are severely outnumbered out there. As I took Mr. Moskowitz and Commissioner Naft out and explained to them, I don't think they had any idea of what we did out on the water prior to our initial trip, and they were pretty much blown away by it. So I urge you, if you have questions, Mr. Moskowitz has been very good at emailing questions to us, so that way we can answer them for you. But obviously, don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know of any issues you may have. So that's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you want to open it to the board? And then to the
Yes,
public?
please, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any questions from the board? Fred?
My name is Fred Doden. One of the, as I read the voting laws, one of the requirements, if you're born after January 183, you must have a certificate of completion of a course. Is that a requirement for everybody?
That's a requirement for residents of the state of Nevada.
So if you come from out of state, you don't have to have that.
So if you come from California, they have a prorated scale now, what they're doing, that I think after a certain number of years, every individual from California will have to have a boater education course in order to operate a vessel. When we encounter, and again, the majority of our contacts on the river in the summer are California operators. Unfortunately, the livery rental requirements do not mandate education from out of state for that. But I can assure you that if we encountered a California individual operating a vessel who, and it's a privately owned vessel, it's not a rental, they do not have education, it is addressed accordingly. Same with Arizona.
Now,
So that provision's already in the law, it's already written in the law as the NRS stands today.
Correct.
Okay.
so if for example, if I rent, and I'm from California, I rent a boat or jet ski, and I have people listed on it that are 18, 15, what are the requirements for them? Do they have to sign anything?
So the requirements for a livery is that you have to be at least 18 to rent the vessel. Now, this is Nevada. This is not Arizona.
Yeah.
You have to be 18 to rent the vessel. okay? On the contract, every operator of that vessel needs to be listed, okay? State of Nevada, age of operation is 14 years old, okay? So as long as they're above 14 and they theoretically have met the requirements in the livery laws, whether they've watched a video, whether they've just been told, and a video is not a requirement. Livery only needs to go over and that they acknowledge the laws, the boating laws for operating a PWC. Then they can be on that rental contract and they can operate at 14 years old.
Okay. And as far as the overview of the rules, you have to give them a briefing. Is there a standard set that each livery has to have, or do they make up their own?
So I'm going to read this to you, and this is out of NAC 488350. Each person to whom a personal watercraft is rented, this is subsection 6, will operate the personal watercraft, shall review the laws and regulations governing safe operation of the personal watercraft rented, or provide written proof that the person has received previous instruction in the safe operation of a personal watercraft. That is it.
I think they're inadequate, but legislature has to change it. Is that a correct statement?
I'm not a legislature.
No, but
I don't interpret, I just enforce the law.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I can't, from my experience, there needs to be more. I do not disagree with you.
Okay. Now, I know right now Bullhead City is trying to change the no-wake zone, and they have approval on their side, and I understand that there's a semi-approval on our side. Do you know any status on that?
So the initial proposal was to move the wake zone further south.
Yeah.
So the north buoy line would be approximately at the, after the Harrah's Rental Beach, from what I understand, moving the south buoy line down past Community Park. As far as I know, those no wake buoys are the jurisdiction of Arizona Game and Fish. And so Nevada Department of Wildlife, we maintain the no wake buoys in Laughlin Lagoon, for instance. So we're responsible for making sure that that is delineated a no wake zone every year. We make sure those buoys are there. The no wake zone at Harrah's, under what I was told, is that those are under the purview of Arizona Game and Fish in the state of Arizona, and that's their responsibility. We have no issues with them moving the wake zone.
So they can move them down if they want to?
The problem is the wake zones are written into legislation and written into statute. So in order to move a wake zone, you potentially need to go through, in the state of Nevada, we would need to go through the Nevada Wildlife Commission and have a commission advisory to change the wake zone. I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure that it's the same in Arizona, that they need to go in front of their Wildlife Commission in order to propose a change. It needs to be accepted by the Wildlife Commission. It can be done, and then it will be written into legislation.
All right.
Okay, I do. Lieutenant, I'm going to kind of sort of, because I'm mostly interested in solutions. And I find usually those come best from the people that are boots on the ground, at least in my years in experience. So a question I'm going to propose to you is if you think this would be a solution, a possible one, if there were a joint legislative group between Arizona and Nevada, rewriting not just what it is you're dealing with, but rewriting the standards and the requirements, as Fred had said, about a water safety course for people coming from California or other states, that if they own a watercraft, they are supposed to have had. But that being a requirement as well for the liveries on both sides as they come to rent, do you think that would have some impact or implication to make the situation better. Not so much the safety course, but like I know if I'm going to launch my boat at Catherine's Landing, I have to have a license and stuff to be able to do that. Same type of thing for if you're going to go to an area where you rent watercraft, you've already been through some of the licensing parts in your own state. So I'm asking if that's a hypothetical type thing, because that would be Nevada revised statute, Arizona. It would also have implications to the business licensing and requirements for livery.
No doubt, I agree 100%. Anything above and beyond of what we have is going to help. The issues that we run into are not the individuals who are following the contract and are only letting the people who are on the contract operate, who are responsible. But I guarantee you 50% of the stops we make are individuals who the family just said, here, yeah, go, take it. And how do you create a law to govern against that?
You've never been able to legislate responsibility. That doesn't happen in the world.
To be politically correct, yes.
That's
So,
not politically correct, that's reality.
And no, absolutely 100%, I agree with that. And Arizona and Nevada have never had any issues. Our boating laws, our wildlife laws mirror each other very closely. And so it's not an issue of getting either Arizona or Nevada on the same page with this. But it's just a matter of making it happen.
You'd have to change entirely human nature, and I don't know. I mean, we can do as much as possible legislatively, but again, you can't legislate morality or responsibility.
Correct.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. So open it to the public.
if you wanna open it.
So at this point, our lieutenant is here, and he'll be listening. If there's anyone that would like to speak on this, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Yep.
And you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And then at the end, after we get ready, before we close to public comment, the lieutenant will be able to address anything that he feels he has answers for the public.
So we'll avoid going back and forth with the lieutenant. Just state your stuff, and that way you can use your 3 minutes more effectively.
So if there's anyone that would like to speak to this, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Smith. My address is 1654 Kyle Avenue, Bullhead City, Arizona. I have been a resident of Bullhead City for nearly 20 years. I have a boater captain safety license. I am a licensed foster parent and take a tremendous amount of children down to that river. I was very actively involved in that little princess over there when her accident occurred, and I've never left her side. One of my biggest concerns right now is, from what I understand, all personal watercrafts and boaters must stay 35 feet away from the shoreline when people are out in the water. Is that correct?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
we'll go ahead and address those
Okay.
at later.
I would
but
like that
please.
addressed because I can tell you more than not. I have been in the water with, my foster children. I've had 67 of them, and I've had to yank them out of the way of these wave runners, personal watercrafts, flying by and intentionally soaking us. It's unacceptable behavior, and they need better training. I'm willing to get out there and volunteer my time on a personal watercraft and help law enforcement. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to prevent this from occurring again to any child. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's an interesting idea about volunteers. We'll see what the lieutenant, if you want to address that now, or if you want to wait till if there's anyone else that wants to come forward.
I can wait. That's
Okay,
fine.
no problem. Anyone else that would like to speak to this, please come up to the podium. Toby.
Good afternoon again. I'm Toby Cotter. I'm the city manager of Bullhead City. As I mentioned before, our vice mayor, council members are here, 2 other candidates who are running for mayor in Bullhead City. So they're all free to speak on their own volition, of course, but I just wanted to point that out that they're here. We're all concerned about the safety on the water. In fact, the city has been trying to grapple with that issue for over a decade, and it's a growing concern. And it's a growing concern for this summer, right? Because other lakes in our region don't have water in them. And so my anticipation is that this summer will be busier than most. And that's a good thing for tourism. It's a good thing for our economy. But water safety has to be paramount. And so we are going to do everything we possibly can as a community to keep the river safe. So not only are our police boats out there every day in the summer, we have 4 generally out when we can, right? Staffing's always an issue. And then we hire a private company with California certified lifeguards. In fact, one of their chief lifeguards is here in the audience, and he can tell you about his experiences, but it's very expensive. So I appreciate the participation we get from the Laughlin casinos because they actually help us by providing room nights for the lifeguards. That saves us probably $20,000 a year. But we're spending several $100,000 just in the lifeguards. And then we have all of our policing and all of those costs, overtime costs, so it's big business for us. But that's what happens when you're in a tourism-driven economy, right? So there is the balance, though, of safety. So when Mark and I met previously, Mr. Doughton was in the room, and I've asked this before, not only of Laughlin, but of Clark County and the casinos. Some part of this is regulatory. And Chairwoman brings up this idea of a joint commission, a work group. It's needed, it's necessary, it's ongoing, right? This won't be solved today. So on the Arizona side, we'd be absolutely happy to participate in some joint legislative work, some joint efforts with the county to create that legislation that we all could live with. But also it's a matter of economics, right? So if Clark County were to say, okay, city, here's another $100,000, that could mean another 400 hours of California certified lifeguards on the river. It's important. The enforcement is extremely important. When that accident happened last Easter, there was very little enforcement on the river. It was actually kind of quiet that day. It was almost overcast. But unfortunate as that was, we were all there at the end to help pick up the pieces. But we need more enforcement out there all the time, and it comes at a huge cost. So if there was an additional outcome that we could ask of Commissioner Naft in Clark County, there's an immediate impact that finances can have on the safety of the river. We're working on a plethora of other things, wristbands, regulations, signage, etc. And we'll do as much of that as we can. And if there's anything the resorts want to do to help us with that, we'd be more than happy to accept their help as well. Thank you all for your time and opportunities to partner now and in the future.
Thank you, Toby. I will add, I will add, some of the properties are aware as well. And I think once Bullhead City decides on their legislation as far as what they're going to do with the liveries, wristbands, what course you're going to take, I would say, the majority of, we only have a few vendors here that are licensed through Clark County through the properties. I think more than likely they would adopt very similar regulations to what it is that you're doing, but it's a multi-pronged attack, and I think it is a legislative joint commission, Nevada revised statutes. I also like the concept, our volunteers in partnership that we have through the chamber and also through Metro. And I don't know, that might be something for the lieutenant as a volunteer program. I mean, we have an incredible wealth on the Laughlin side of our volunteers that are involved at every major event. I don't know what it would require to augment and help the game wardens from either side, something that your volunteers as well. I'm sure there's training because I'm a cert. I'm certified for CERT for Clark County and different things like that. And I've put myself through that training, and our volunteers more than likely on both sides would be willing to do that. That's not something that's money, but it's something that's volunteer. And the type of individuals that volunteer take great pride in their work and do an excellent job. So that's not an expensive solution, but still another option.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to partner on any potential solutions. It's a magnificently huge issue that we grapple with every day. And people want to say, well, overregulate it, stop it, don't allow it. But also the message that we need to share with people that we share at almost every meeting we have is it's a federal waterway that we're all living in this environment where everybody wants to come because this is such a beautiful river. And it's a beautiful, clean, crisp wonderful place that when people come here, they're like, this is great. And I'll tell you a quick story. I walk those beaches from time to time in the summer, and I ask people, especially those from California who kind of get the bad rap, why are they here? They have beautiful oceans, right? So people who live near the ocean come to Laughlin and Bullhead City because it's sunny, which it isn't always at the ocean. It's hot, right? We guarantee that. It's always going to be hot and sunny. And there's also the availability to drink alcohol in our communities, and that's something that's it's regulated in California. So the mix of that, it's a fun place to be. We've created an environment where millions of people want to come. So that's where we find ourselves today, and finding a way to keep that energy, but making it safe. And there's no simple solutions. If there were, we wouldn't be here, right? We would have already simplified that. So thanks again for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else that would like to address this subject, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Steve D'Amico. I'm Vice Mayor of Bullhead City. I don't want to be repetitive. Toby, pretty much our city manager, said most of everything we wanted to say. I would like to request, though, a follow-up meeting as soon as possible. I know you guys can't take action here. Perhaps a meeting with someone that can take action in the future, be it in Bullhead City or over here. So if you would, please contact our city manager at your convenience so we could set something up to continue this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Harvey Pryor, resident of Bullhead City, 1652 Rio Vista Drive. Lived here since 1987. I've also been a victim of a wave runner running over me out there on the river, and it wasn't the person that signed the contract that hit me, which left me all on my own. There was no rental agency, nobody to go after. By law, that's just leaves the victim hanging by themselves. It's kind of astonishing on how small Bullhead City is, but we pay the big money to protect this river with law enforcement and everything else out there. Our city council just spent a whole bunch of money on 2 new boats, 4 new wave runners out there, and we've got, what, 7 boats over there? We spend a lot of money, a lot of our tax money. Y'all got these casinos. You need to get one of these casinos to start spending to pay to cover and protect their visitors and their guests. We're paying big money to put a lifeguard on that river. Laughlin needs to step up and at least from the bridge down to Harris have lifeguards on that river. Y'all need to be protecting. And for just only one agency to be on the river, the wildlife guys, that's neglect of your citizens. That's neglect of your visitors. You've got how many visitors do you have that come here every year, and the only thing you have protecting them on the river is wildlife? I don't understand how Metro can have such a huge budget but don't even have a boat to put on the river out here. Who is to help? Anytime you ask anybody on the Nevada side, well, if something happens, who do you call? Well, they call Bullhead. You guys have got a lot of shoreline that y'all need to cover. These are your laws. These are your visitors. You need to protect them, and you need to enforce your own laws. And if you're not going to have somebody out there doing this for you, then you need to sign an agreement that's going to allow the Bullhead City Police Department to come onto your shores, regulate and check your rental agencies to make sure they are doing things and doing them the same way we do in Bullhead City. Because if you're going to play one game while we're trying to do things right, it's never going to be fixed. We got to be part of the solution, not just talking about the problems. So really, Nevada and the township of Laughlin really seriously needs to step up, spend a lot of money, get one of these agencies to spend a lot more money, get them a house down here, get them a 3-bedroom house to where they can have 3 officers down here working the weekends, whatever it takes. Get these people to where you are actually covering your visitors and your people over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. If there's anyone else that would, council member.
I had to bring this down a bit.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Annette Wegman. I live at 2355 Shadow Canyon Drive in Bullhead City. I am a Bullhead City Councilwoman. I also am employed by Family Care Home Health and Hospice. I'm a hospice chaplain. But the most important thing is I'm a mother, and I raised 3 children in Bullhead City on and off the river. Public safety is very important to us, whether it's on the roads or on the river. What happened here was very unfortunate and should not have happened. What we're doing on our side of the river, you guys should be doing on your side of the river. The people that work here live in our area and vice versa. But if we're putting policies into place and you're not, we're not winning. We've got to win this battle. We've got to fight this battle and win it and be on the same page on both sides of the river. This is our river. I can go to this river any day of the week. I don't have to go on Memorial Day or the 4th of July, and I try to stay away from that, and I've told my children to do the same thing. I call them children, however, they are adults. My 3rd child is getting ready for college, but I taught them safety and taught them respect because it's our river, not mine, not my children. It's yours and yours. It's for all of us to play. So we put lifeguards on the river. We know what we have to do for our budget, grants, policies. You guys need to do the same thing. It's important. We want to make sure that we're doing our part, and we feel that we are, and we ask that you guys would do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please.
Hi there again, Michael Bohannon, 305 East Minister Court, Henderson, Nevada. You know, the reality is this, like you just said, this river is all of ours, and both Nevada and Arizona have decided to put a town on this river. And the people that come here to visit, whether they're from California or Nevada or Utah, Arizona, it doesn't matter. If there's people coming to visit both sides of the river, and both sides need to help out with this. You know, I've been a resident of Vegas my entire life. I've been coming out here and playing in this river to some capacity my whole life, whether it be on Lake Mead, Lake Mojave, or down here in the river. And I would have never known if my daughter hadn't been hit that this problem exists. But ever since this has happened, I have looked into you know, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a very outspoken person on this subject now. And it's obvious to me that from this side of the river, and I feel ashamed to say it as a Nevada resident, you guys, we got to step up and we got to be a part of the solution, because if we're not a part of the solution, we're a part of the problem. And I think that Nevada can do it. I think you guys can do it. Hold their hands. Let's hold hands with Bullhead side, and let's make this a safe place to be. Because like Toby said, everything else is dried up. They're coming this summer. It's already getting hot. I've already come out to visit. God bless your heart. Isabella has even come back to the river and played in it. If we're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. Please, please.
Thank you. If there's anyone else that would like to speak, please come to the podium.
Board members, thank you for having me. My name is Ashley Gerich, last name spelled Gerich. I live at 1111 Zircon Avenue in Bullhead City, Arizona. So I understand that there has been mention of statistics for the last year, and although I won't go on to the boating while intoxicated and those statistics, which are very alarming because we know, like Toby Cotter just mentioned, people come to our river to drink and have fun over the weekends. 6 incidents of a DUI for the entire summer or year is alarming. But moving on, although we don't have specific statutes that are in coordinates with certifications or things that are for the renters, we do have a statute called the NRS 488.400. And that is
I'm sorry, NRS, please say that again.
488.400. And although recklessly is not defined, the statute reads, operation of vessel or manipulation of water skis or surfboard, we don't have those here, recklessly or while intoxicated under the influence of controlled substance is prohibited. That being said, what is the term reckless? I think that we get to see that on a regular basis up and down our river every single day, and especially when we are working with individuals that rent these personal watercrafts and they don't know what they are doing. And whether that be splashing the individuals on the sidelines or playing around and going on the opposite side of the river, I think that we need to take into account that we do have legislation in effect that can protect us and that our law enforcement does need to abide by. And he did say, I enforce the law, and the law states that recklessness is against the law. And so we need to take into account that if they are patrolling the river and we see recklessness, we should also utilize the legislation that we do have in place to be able to deter future issues with these rental agencies. I think that's all my time, but thank you, and I hope that we can all work together to come up with an amicable solution.
I think that's all why we're here. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just as this has been progressing, I kind of have been of the belief that, you know, our attention span's about an hour, hour and a half, then we kind of need to take a little break because we're adults. So I'm going to call for a short recess. We will reconvene in about 15 minutes.
It's very short. I wasn't even going to get up here.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Please.
So my name is Jenny Smith.
Please
and
address the board. I'm sorry, a little louder because I just can't hear you.
Okay. My name is Jenny Smith, S-M-I-T-H, and I live at 2830 La Palma Drive here in Laughlin. My only comment, as I've heard everyone, and I know not a lot about this program, but I will say I came to learn about it just a few months ago when a local citizen started the Facebook page for the Colorado River, whatever it is. Bruce Henry, along with Stan Goldman, and they were very concerned about the river and what was happening. And as far as I know, that really is what got the ball rolling, for me anyway. And I understand everybody's been dealing with this a long time. But I just want to say kudos to those Nevada residents. Nevada has tried to stand up. So much of it is out of our hands, but you're right in wanting to work together. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I will call for a 15-minute recess. We will reconvene at, 20 minutes after the hour. And if I could please see Toby and Jackie Wallen. I'm going to adjourn for a short recess. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can please have you take your seats, and we will start to reconvene our meeting. I think we all needed a little break.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and call this meeting back into order. We were, before we recessed, in the public comment portion of our meeting as far as people speaking to the item that we have before us, which is receive a report on water safety and updates from the Nevada Department of Wildlife. So we were listening to public comment, and again, we will have our lieutenant from Wildlife, Department of Wildlife, address some of the questions. So I will open it back up. If there is anyone that would like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Sir. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bo Helms. I'm the Executive Director of the Bullhead Area Chamber of Commerce, but I'm also a lifeguard during the summer for the water rescue and safety personnel that Bullhead City Police Department hires or contracts with. Water safety comes in two different measures, right? You have the issues with the jet skis rental company, and then you have the safety of the water itself. And lifeguards, fire department, police officers, generally we're after the math has already happened. You know, after an incident has already happened, we're there to respond. And it's a service that I think has been very influential in our community, not only for the locals, but also the visitors. Our lifeguard agency has been able to respond to a plethora of incidences, whether it be jet ski versus jet ski or jet ski versus person or boat or whatever it be. It seems to me, and I'm just an employee of the lifeguard agency, and it seems to me Bullhead is taking this on and taking responsibility solely and independently. Our lifeguard agency, these are not volunteers, they are specialty operators, myself included. Hundreds of hours of water rescue certifications in open water on the ocean, multiple weeks of training. I mean, and I just talked to Endow. There's a lot of training that goes into being an officer, and a lifeguard can never be an officer, but an officer, unless they had the background of being a lifeguard first, will never be the quality of a certified open water lifeguard because they don't carry the same training that we do. So being able to spend money on enforcement is going to help the issue, of course, but being able to share the load of the cost for the lifeguards and enhance those services is actually creating quality safety for this river. You very rarely will see a dressed police officer jump into the water and act. Not that they won't, they probably will strip themselves and get into the water, but a lifeguard will pull up on a jet ski, jump off the water, or off the jet ski and make a rescue because that's what they're trained to do. So you need to have the balance of both services. You need to have more enforcement on the river, but you need to also have trained individuals to know how to do this. All of the lifeguards that the city of Bullhead pays for are trained by other agencies, and somehow we haven't been able to figure out how to make our river safer, but the city of Carlsbad, the city of San Diego, the city of Encinitas, Del Mar Beach, Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, the city of Oceanside, Del Mar, all the way up the coast of California, cities take ownership of the waterway that they serve, and those are federal waterways as well, but they instill and they put in lifeguard agencies just like they would police departments or fire departments, creating an agency that specializes in water safety. Now, I know that is not going to probably happen in Laughlin. It might not happen for a while in Bullhead, but being able to increase the amount that you're going to help Bullhead with the cost for an outside agency is huge. These lifeguards that are coming over are bused Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday from San Diego where they get their training out here. So these are all open water certified lifeguards at the beach that bring that skill set, a specialized skill set to our river. They're paying for the highest quality of lifeguards I've ever seen on the water. So I think it'd be only fair if you guys split that bill with them as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just one thing I would ask of you, if you would give your information and your contact information to our secretary, just simply because one of the things that I consider is volunteers. And we have a large staff of volunteers in the Laughlin community that might be willing to undergo some of that training.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that's willing to go through the training should be paid for what they do. We're upwards of $30 to $35 an hour for what we get paid for, and a volunteer with that certification is going to want the same thing. But knowing that this takes someone years, 4 to 5 years to get these certifications on a national level, it's uncomparable. Being able to split the bill with the city and get quality employees out there is huge. That would be the first step, the biggest step.
Okay, if you would just leave her the information with us just as a contact. Thank you. Please come up. Welcome.
Bo's much taller than I am. My name is Grace Hecht. I'm a Bullhead City Council member, and I would like to first of all say thank you for allowing us to come here and have this open conversation with you. I really believe in working together with Laughlin. I think that it's going to make a really great partnership, and I want to say thank you to Laughlin and the resorts that work with us as they give rooms to our lifeguards like Bo, these lifeguards that come from out of state, rooms to stay in, complimentary. So thank you to them for that. Also, I think that having a tri-state group working together with all of us coming to the table would be very effective. So thank you for having this conversation today, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else care to speak before we open up to the board or bring back the lieutenant? Is there anything that the board would like to say? Please. Pam.
Lieutenant, is there any reason that we can't use cadets during the summer as, at least as spotters, who might be able to prevent an accident or call someone to that area rather quickly from either side of the river?
When you refer to cadets,
Police cadets?
Some of our volunteers then.
Right.
Yeah.
no, there's absolutely no reason why we could not utilize spotters, for instance. Statistics on where the majority of incidents happen are Davis Camp and Chamber of Commerce Community Park area, where we have hundreds of spotters. So can those be prevented? It's hard to say. But anything that we could utilize would help, no doubt.
Okay. I will say in the room here today, we have City of Bullhead, we have council members from Bullhead, we have Bullhead Chamber, we have Laughlin Chamber. One of the possible solutions to this, because we have the volunteers in partnership through Metro, and we have representatives of Metro back there as well, would be like a Colorado River volunteer program that would utilize all the above. And I think that would be an easy thing to put together, and then maybe go forward with more formalized training, like Clark County comes down and does CERT training, with the citizens of the community for emergency response teams. So I would think right here in the room, we have the decision makers that can, make that a reality for the Colorado River region. I think that would be very simple to form a volunteer base, go through training and stuff for them, possibly in conjunction with Nevada Department of Wildlife and, the Bullhead
I will say
Police.
that I worked the river the first 2-3 years that I worked the river as a patrol officer. We did not have the lifeguards out there. Since having the lifeguards, it is invaluable to have them there with us. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're responding to the incident quicker and faster than we are because they're on jet skis and they may not be tied up on another incident. And 100% faith in them to at least secure the scene, stabilize the individual if it needs to be done, where we can come in and start the investigation and start what we need to do. So, I mean, they're invaluable. So if anything, and I had previously spoken to Commissioner Naft and Mr. Moskowitz about potentially having additional lifeguards supplied through Laughlin, Clark County to facilitate this, and it would be invaluable. That would be if I was in charge and money was not an option, that's where I would start.
But I think that's something that would be probably the most proactive and also the most expedient to happen. Something like that could be stood up maybe even this summer.
I wanted to also address the Mrs. Smith, who left, brought up the topic of 35 feet within a swimmer. NRS 488-600 states operating a vessel within 100 feet of a swimmer. So, and if you can imagine, our river in some instances is not even 100 feet wide. So that would involve stopping every vessel passing through the bottleneck at Chamber of Commerce and writing them a citation, which probably is not going to happen. 200 feet within any beach.
Oh.
So there you go.
That means you couldn't have a watercraft on the
Which would be
river.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. And therefore, that would be an incredible decline to the economy of both sides of the river, and we would cease to exist.
And then the last thing, the individual who cited the reckless operation, that statute specifically first refers to operating a vessel under the influence. We do have a reckless statute which involves sharp turns, close proximity, and one other, jumping awake. You know. Where we need to observe two of those close turn,
Violations.
proximity, or jumping awake in order to stop them for reckless operations. So I just wanted to address those. Okay.
Is there any other questions of the lieutenant? And I know you were taking some notes, so were those your responses
Yeah, I
to
just
what
wanted
the
to respond
clients
to
had
those.
said?
That was it.
All right. And so just a kind of a recap, you feel that some joint legislation as far as between Arizona and Nevada, revised statute, as well as it pertains to water safety and livery regulation, as well as a partnership amongst the Colorado River community pertaining to volunteers with certified training would help alleviate this situation.
You know, nobody wants more laws.
Correct.
But there's instances where more precise, concise language would be better for interpretation of those laws.
Consistency amongst Arizona and Nevada, and consistency in the business livery regulation.
Yes.
Correct. That is a legislative session, but however, because we're here today, this is where we start formulating and we put together a coalition to solve a problem. But legislative sessions do take time. However, a volunteer type situation would be something that we might be able to put together quicker. Please come up to the podium. I was trying not to do back and forth, but that's okay.
Getting people certified takes a lot of time, and I think what a lot of people in this room want is an answer today, and they have an answer that's working right now that the city has implemented, which is a lifeguard agency that they pay for solely on their own. A participation in offering to enhance that service by bringing up more revenue on this side of the river, any revenue on this side of the river to help out with the agency and continue to grow that program is far surpassing the ability of bringing in volunteers that are not trained, that do not know what a summer looks like, especially when we're going into a summer that might be bigger than the last 2 summers we had, which had, what, 5,000 interactions between lifeguards, police department, and people on the river. You don't want to start out by training someone. That's a program you grow in the off season and you implement it during the season. There's no off season. Our lifeguard agency right now are gearing up, getting ready to go, launch, and be ready. Bring some funds and help us grow the program that already exists, not reinvent another one a month before summer starts. You know? And another thing I just wanted to conclude with is this is your saving grace right here. On the river, from a perspective of a lifeguard, when we're working with NDOW, they're like another lifeguard agency on the water. The communication is exactly the same. They operate to the highest level of competency that we want. The individual that is no longer here overseas right now is he's probably a lifeguard. Is he a prior lifeguard? Amazing. I mean, that's the quality of service you're getting from these people is they know how to operate on the water, which makes our job so much easier. When someone knows how to operate, any police individual that gets training, when they operate to the highest level possible, it makes us feel a lot safer because we're the ones in the water, not on a boat. So.
And possibly this year, we may only be able to provide, if we stand up volunteers, spotters and stuff, but like I said, it's something that we're working together for the first time in over 20 years. So there will be a solution that comes out of this because you have all the players at working together for the first time in many years. So there will be a solution that comes from this that, alleviates the issue. Please, Bree.
Hi, Bria Shadini, owner and operator of Rocky River Jet Ski Rentals. We're located at the Aquarius. I just want to backtrack a little bit on the water safety and the lifeguard issue. We have 3 employees that where we utilize our jet ski rentals is straight from the Aquarius boat dock at the casino. We have 3 employees that are down on that dock all day long with getting our renters on and off the watercraft. All of our employees are lifeguard certified and Swiftwater Rescue certified. We're not required by law to do this, but we do this because we care about the safety of our renters. I think encouraging, there's problematic companies in the area that I think if that were addressed on that level, then and encouraging them to step up and to really educate people beyond showing a video. We are not required to show the safety video. However, we take it one step further and we do hands-on training with our renters. Before they can get on the watercraft, if there's any kind of impairment or any kind of speech, communication error, anything, if they can't understand the communication that's happening from the safety advisor to them as the renter, we don't rent to them, bottom line. If they can't understand the instruction, they just don't get to take the ski out. So if this does take place, and we do, I think it's a great idea to have a committee for bringing both sides of the river together, because there's a lot of great ideas that come with that, and there's a lot of things that we're not required to do by law, but we go above and beyond and do because we want the river to be a safe place. I would encourage other companies that are rental companies on the Laughlin side to do the same. We don't have to pay the fees to the city, which contributes to the lifeguard program, but I've had conversations with Toby Cotter about, how can we contribute to that? Because we don't have to do those fees, but we're willing to step up and we're willing to contribute what we can and help financially. If that's something that we can do, we're willing to do that as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and all of our we have every vessel that we run is licensed Coast Guard captains. So that's something that we take very serious as a company.
Yes. Thank you, Bree. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a question of the lieutenant? Jackie? Then I'll shut that down.
Sorry. I just want to make sure that we're putting things in different baskets. The first basket is immediate. We have summer upon us, and we need safety. We need people who are watching the water. We need people with walkie-talkies. Even if they're not Swiftwater certified, we need to have those people. And I guarantee you're not going to find many volunteers that are going to stand out in that heat and do that job. So when they say that we need to supplement or help Bullhead City with the lifeguard program that's already assigned to the Colorado River, I don't think that that's too much to ask. I think for Clark County to step up and pay a percentage of that Swiftwater rescue, we can't enforce what these companies are doing because you can't put somebody there babysitting. It's like the bee watcher's bee watcher, right? You can't do that. You have to give them the rules. But right now, that legislative part is, to me, is in the third basket. Right now, we have to come up with a decision on how we're going to work together as a community, help with the lifeguard situation so we can save lives, even if there is an accident, and then move towards legislation, which we know is going to take 1, 2, 3, 5 years maybe to get that statute in so that we can enforce it on this side. Right now, we have to do something to save the lives that are being hurt. And those people that don't understand the swift water that we have, that's the problem. We have people going out in the middle of the water without a life vest on. They don't realize how swift it is. Some things don't have to be accidents. They just have to be educated. So I'm just asking on behalf of myself personally, who is a tri-state resident, to make sure that we have the safety and then work on that legislative part in the next basket.
Okay, thank you. And again, I do not know what type of budgeting and funding would be available to augment that. That would be something for our commissioner to look at.
Correct, and that's a very good point. With it being over the jurisdiction of the state of Nevada, it's truly not a Clark County asset. So we really don't have a billable source to it. We don't invest money towards it because it's technically not ours. I mean, it is a state agency. With the lifeguards, a lot of the policies of Clark County for employees, they have to live in the state of Nevada. And I can tell you, we can't even find lifeguards for our pools here locally. So I know Bullhead City has a lot more youthful people, to say it nicely, that are able to volunteer to be summer lifeguards. That's another step that would cause like being able to even have lifeguards. Because like right now, if anyone knows any lifeguards, we'd love to hire them for our community pools here, because currently we can't even really have those open. So we're aware of like staffing shortages that way. I understand that the Colorado River lifeguards are much more trained and more of that, but even us being able to find teenagers that can be lifeguards, it's been nearly impossible for the last 2 years. So,
But I think the commissioner would definitely be able to know
Yeah.
at the state level where
Yeah.
that type of funding would come from. It would probably come from maybe your agency or the Colorado River Commission or, various different state agencies.
yeah, and we have a great relationship with Nevada Department of Wildlife. We're aware of what's going on. We always brainstorm. I have a great relationship with Lieutenant Walther that, we are trying to find ways. Like it is a very, because of legislation, like we would love to do everything in our power to, put staff on there. We'd love to have Metro there, but like truthfully, because of laws and regulations, it's not our regulated. So that's where it gets hard. Everyone is aware of it. The commissioner is aware of it. My office is aware of it. We're all aware of it. But I think meetings like this really help to start, like you said, start the process. We can find out what's going on. I think you said we've got great partners in the room that can get together and we can figure out ways to kind of start momentum with it. And I know there's even some citizens in the room that are able to look into legislation. So I know there's not going to be a lot of answers today, but we all are aware of it. We're working towards it. We want to make sure we keep these meetings and everyone, I appreciate them being polite and kind, because I feel like we were able to get a lot of good feedback. We all were able to take a lot of good notes, and now we can go back to the table and we can find solutions. So I know it is difficult that the summer season is right around the corner, but we're going to do everything in our power that we can to make this a safe summer. So,
Okay, all right, great. Thank you. Lieutenant, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just thank you for having me. This is the first time I've attended one of these. It's quite intimidating to walk in and see all these people, but which is fine. Our job is we never know what we're going to run into. So walking in here, I didn't know what I was going to run into. But thank you for having me, and don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and braving all this.
you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see, we were due, I don't know if they're still in the room, to receive a report from Will Smith with Clark County Water Reclamation regarding the status of our wastewater system. I think he left.
Yeah.
Okay. Receive a report from Jason Bailey of the Big Bend Water District. Hi, there you are. I saw you earlier, but I wasn't sure if you made the recess.
And thank you, Jason, for sticking around. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Jason Bailey with the Big Bend Water District with our report for the month. So for March, last month, total diversions from the river were 228 acre feet. As you can see, year to date, we're at 659 acre feet, so right on par with last year and even the year before. The system's in good shape, no major leaks or issues to report. I did want to mention, I think last month or the month before, I talked about some state grant funding that we received. So last week at the Big Bend Water District Board of Directors meeting, that was approved. Totals at roughly $2.5 million in system improvements. So over the next maybe 3 or 4 meetings, there might be some items related to some of those projects, the filtration well and some other things like that. So that's good news. I also wanted to report and make mention that in February, at the end of February, the Las Vegas Valley Water District installed a new billing system. And so last month was kind of the first month bills came out from that. I know that a lot of Laughlin bills or Big Bend Water District bills that were received were incorrectly branded Las Vegas Valley Water District. So the bills themselves are correct. They're going to the correct system. They were just branded incorrectly with the name and logo and things like that. That's been identified and corrected. I don't know if that happened throughout all of Laughlin, but we have received some calls on that. So I just want to report on that we know about that. It's been identified and it's been corrected. So with that, I'd take any questions from the board.
Any questions from the board?
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Jason.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
and my water bill was one of those too. It gave me a little pause for a minute, but I knew it was coming because
be corrected
I
next
attend the
time.
meetings, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, receive a report from Alon? Okay, and that was Parks and Recreation. Receive a report, Jackie Whalen, Laughlin Chamber of Commerce, and also Laughlin Tourism Commission. I promise I will get your name right at some point. It's just a lot of years of history with Museo, yes.
I know. The report that I gave you is pretty self-explanatory. I won't belabor the fact with all of this information on here for you. We did have our backyard mixer on Friday in our new parking lot. Thank you, Clark County. We got striped even. I know it's kind of exciting.
Don't destroy it.
I feel rich. It makes our building look better. You know, does your parking lot make your building look better? Anyways, we were able to hand over all including 13,057 to the River Funds Cancer Connection, and that was from registered walkers, private donations, the Harris Heroes Foundation, 3,500, and the Chamber Volunteers in Partnership were $1,000. So the Cancer Connection has its coffers refilled, and we're pretty happy about that, even with the lack of participants this year because of the weather. We need to talk to you about Chef's Food Fest. Although it's the most anticipated event of the year, it has been postponed. If you don't know about the development of the Chef's Food Fest, it was developed by chefs in the resorts to compete, have a friendly competition at the benefit of our food banks. So they compete and we eat so others can eat who are less fortunate. We don't have the culinary staff. I think the culinary staff is below 64% at this point. So we don't have enough culinary staff, we don't have enough educated or experienced to run this kind of a competition. It's not that we don't depend on other restaurants also, or other participants, but the majority of them are resorts. So we will be sending out a press release after today. We have members at 307, Laughlin is 30% of that. The Volunteers in Partnership have been working every concert. They're doing really, really well. Their IFP ambassador program is going to fail off just a little bit because Riverside's closing down their charters for the summer. So they won't have as many charters to be volunteering for. But we have Sammy Hagar, Pitbull, Kid Rock, Best in the Desert, and Toby Keith for volunteers, whoever want to sign up and participate and see free concerts. I have mentioned this before. I have got approval from Nevada Division of Transportation, Nevada Department of Transportation, to replace the signs along 163. So that should be done by the middle of June. So I think that's the rest. And I just want to continue to remind everybody that I'm a registered agent for the Nevada Division of Wildlife, and we sell fishing licenses and small game licenses, not big game. So if you need a fishing license or a small game, you can get it from our office. I'll move on to LTC if that's okay. LTC, the townwide concerts that we have been putting on have been bringing in record numbers. Of course, people want to get out. The one for Old Dominion was a little warm, but because the sun finally went down behind the mountains, we did get a nice cool evening and a little breeze, and it made for a wonderful concert. Very entertaining. We had our first Western Outdoor News Laughlin Open at Lake Mojave at Catherine. It was very exciting to hear people come off that water and say, this is the cleanest water I've ever seen. They said, God, I could see down about 30 feet. I could see the bottom. I said, you're not at 30 feet. That's 60 feet. I said, look at your fish finder. And they just gasp at the idea that we had water that is so fresh and so clean, and so they want to come back. They will be coming back next March for our annual fishing tournament, but it appears that Meade may be too low for the October U.S. Open, and that we may be hosting that also. So that brings in over 450 anglers, over 200 vessels, with a payout of over $550,000 and a brand new bass boat. So that could bring a lot of tourism dollars to our area, and I'm excited to announce that when we get funding. The only show we're going to have for Rockets on the River is July 4th only. It's a Monday. We're expecting that they're going to be making a 3-day weekend out of it anyways. So we're going to give them fireworks on Monday night, and they can go home on Tuesday if they want. I don't know who else is doing fireworks. I did catch that AV might be doing fireworks, but I'm not sure. Also, we are ready to announce that we have an air show coming. The name for that is to be determined. We have tentative funding from the Nevada side and from Bullhead City commitment to give us a full 1-day, 4 to 5 hour static ground and air show, full with military and rappelling and all kinds of fun stuff, wing walkers, all kinds of fun stuff in our small little air box that we have. We've been able to ascertain that we can put on about 4 hours. It's going to take the agencies from both sides to get that done, a lot of transportation for people because we don't have the parking at the airport. But just like when President Trump came, we'll make sure that everything happens the right way. Destination marketing, I'm in the middle of filling out the next grant so that we can put some digital billboards out, put some more guides out, do some more rack cards across the Western United States and welcome people to our adventurous and recreational area. As well as gambling and occupancy. That just goes with it. So that is all I have. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Just one thing that I just didn't see because the flyers that come out from the chamber. So I think it was April 1st, they reopened some of the EIDLs for additional funding. So some of the dollar amounts that were originally put out and then some of the restrictions for certain businesses that are considered adult entertainment that were excluded have now been opened. Is that something that your membership has been aware of or taking advantage of?
Yes, in our weekly newsletter, there's a spot where it says all updates to anything that related to COVID, resources, support, those kind of things is in there. You just have to click on it and it tells you, it takes you to your state just like it did before, except now we put it behind the scenes.
Oh, okay.
It's not as apparent as it used to be.
Okay, because they just had opened that and I know.
They extended them. They released some of the restrictions.
Correct.
And increased the amount that you could borrow.
Right.
For nonprofits, it's 2.75%, and for for-profits, it's 3.75%.
Right.
For
And that was, I know for the gaming industry, that's huge because we were excluded because we were considered adult entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
So thank you.
All right. And let's see. A discussion and community input with the Fines and Justice Center, otherwise known as the FFJC, regarding experiences with fines and fees stemming from traffic and misdemeanor tickets. So, hello, welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm just going to find a place to put my water really quickly. And we're going to get started. Say that again.
So if you guys just want to let us know when you want to go to the next slide.
Gotcha. Well, I'm so excited to be here. I thought everybody was here for us. I'm kind of glad. Kind of a little sad now. Yeah, we're all excited. Like there's a room full of people. First of all, thank you, Madam Chair, and to members of the Town Advisory Board, and to Mark and Tammy, who have so wonderful to us in helping us to set up this first tour stop. You all are the first stop on our world tour. So thank you so much for being our first. Yeah, that's what we're calling it. I am Lisa Mosley. I am the state director for the Fines and Fees Justice Center, and I will let Nick introduce himself rather than me do it for him.
And my name is Nick Sheepek, and I am the State Deputy Director of the Fines and Fees Justice Center here in Nevada.
The Fines and Fees Justice Center is a national organization. We're the only organization solely dedicated to the issue of eliminating fees in the criminal legal system and making fines more equitable, more just, and more proportionate to a person's ability to pay. Our strategy is comprised of 3 key components: information, advocacy, and collaboration. You see the slide of the clearinghouse up there. We provide a clearinghouse that has extensive information, research, data on fines and fees and reform efforts across the country. We work in collaboration with other organizations, and you see a slide there, some of those organizations of ACLU, Americans for Prosperity, ALEC, Institute for Justice, Southern Poverty Law Center. Those are some of the organizations that we work in collaboration with nationally, but we also work in collaboration with local organizations, local advocacy groups, and cities, towns across the country, across the state, I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied. Local advocacy groups also across the state. And before I get into a presentation, I just wanted to share with you this fact, why we decided to do this tour. Both Nick and I have had the opportunity with our work to get and talk to people in the state. Nick he was born in Nevada. He was born in rural areas, and so he knows a lot more about it than I do. But in my own personal work, I've had the opportunity, this thing is bothering me. I've had the opportunity to talk to people across the state and work with people, my work in policy. What I've noticed is that rural towns and cities and smaller towns often get left out of the conversation when it comes to policy and laws being made. We wanted to do this tour. Nick and I decided to do this tour because we wanted to hear from those communities. We wanted to hear the voices of people who often don't get their voices heard. And so we have some autonomy in a way to decide what we're going to work on. And we wanted to do this tour and listen to people and hear stories, because that informs our agenda. It informs what we decide that we are going to work on. And so I thought that was important to share, so you understand and the people understand why we are embarking on what we are calling our rural tour. And so again, I wanted to say thank you to Tammy and Mark and to the town board for listening to us and having an open mind and sharing your feedback with us and asking us questions and making sure, I think we all do better when we work together. And so that's a little bit about who the Fines and Fees Justice Center is. So what is our goal at the Fines and Fees Justice Center? I'm gonna let Nick tell you what that is all about.
Yes, thank you. So the goal of the Fines and Fees Justice Center is to eliminate most fees in the criminal justice system, which is surprising to some people, but really the way we look at fees, the way our partners, because we partner with people on the right and the left, is that fees are often a tax that funds either local government or local court, or in the case of the administrative assessment, the Supreme Court and the state AOC. So these fees are levied on things like misdemeanors, mostly traffic tickets. They do not need a 2/3 majority to pass, and they balloon the cost of tickets. The fine, on the other hand, is your punishment. We do not wish to eliminate fines. We believe that fines have a very real place in the criminal justice system. It's instead of incarceration, you are financially sanctioned, right? Now, we do have a vested interest in making sure that fines are equitable, that people are able to actually pay them, that they're not choosing between feeding their kids and paying a fine, right? And it obviously hurts a lot more if you are a poor single mother and you get the same fine as somebody who, say, Elon Musk comes speeding through northern Nevada, right? However, so we look at these things very differently. We want to make sure that fines are right size, that courts have the ability to take somebody's ability to pay into consideration. And we believe that courts, especially, are extremely important parts of the community, and that the counties that should be funding them from the general budget, and that the state should be supporting our courts, and they shouldn't be dependent on crime. A decrease in crime should not mean a decrease in revenue. Our courts should function, especially if we're seeing a decrease in crime. So yeah, this is, I mean, this slide is basically what we were talking about. Fees are added, there's administrative fees, there's fees, the construction fees, all types of fees, and so we don't believe that those should be placed upon individuals who just get speeding tickets. Here's an example.
And essentially, before I get to that, that slide. Essentially, fees are taxes. What are taxes? Taxes are monies that are raised to support our government, and we all benefit from that. But what happens when we have these additional fees in the criminal legal system is they're levied against people who are most unlikely able to pay them, and they just basically raise taxes. And so that is why we work to eliminate as many of these fees as possible. One of the misconceptions about our work is that in taking away the fees and working to make sure that fines are equitable, somehow relieves people who break the law of their responsibility and their accountability, and that's not the case. We are not working and not asking for people not to be held accountable. What we are working toward is a system where people are actually able to pay their fines and able to still feed their families, still live their life every day, and also be held accountable in the process of doing that. And so I wanted to make sure we pointed that out. This slide here is an actual citation. It is a citation that my fiance got. Yes, and I thought he gave me permission to use it. And the reason we're showing you this slide is because you'll see here that the base fine on this ticket is $399. He was for speeding. And we think he should be fined for speeding. What's happening in many cases is that people who get speeding tickets, those tickets are reduced down to illegal parking. That's mostly about revenue. Speeding is a violation of our state statute. But when it gets reduced down to illegal parking, it now becomes a violation of a local ordinance or local municipal code. And what happens with that is rather than any fine and fee revenue going to the state because it's a violation of a state statute, that money now stays in that local jurisdiction. And so what we're seeing is speeding tickets get reduced down. And that local jurisdiction gets to keep that money. And we know that that's problematic, one, because local jurisdictions are having to rely on fine and fee revenue to be able to function. That's a result of not getting state funding, adequate state funding to run our courts. But what I want to show you with this ticket is you'll see that the base fine was $399. The administrative assessment that Nick mentioned earlier is $95. Now, are we all familiar with the administrative assessment? The administrative assessment is a fee that's added on to every misdemeanor and every felony conviction in the state of Nevada. It varies anywhere from, say, $35 to $125. 50% of the Nevada Supreme Court budget comes from the administrative assessment. You'll also see a fee on here for genetic markers. Now, that's questionable. Are any of us getting genetic testing in here? Probably not. But if you ever get a ticket, guess what? You're going to pay $3 to go toward genetic testing fee. Construction assessment, $10. Specialty court fee, $7. And the lovely transaction fee because you paid the ticket online with a credit card. You get a fee for that. Total, $518. Now, as Nick said, Mr. Elon Musk speeding through Laughlin, going to the river, getting his jet ski so he can go hang out for the day, he might be able to pay that $518 ticket. But let me share a story with you about a gentleman by the name of Jerry Camerman. Jerry has given me permission to share his story. Jerry is in his mid-70s. He is a resident of Henderson. Jerry is a veteran. Jerry is also receiving Social Security. Jerry got a ticket for having an expired vehicle registration. This was right at the beginning of COVID. COVID hit hard, hit everybody hard. Jerry was not able to pay that ticket. And as I mentioned, the fine and all of the additional fees added on. Jerry went to court, got on a payment plan, which is an additional fee if you want to get on a payment plan. So now Jerry has the original fine, all of these fees that we discussed, and an additional $50 fee to establish a payment plan. Well, then COVID hits. He's not able to pay that ticket. If you miss a payment in the state of Nevada, you're automatically in warrant status. So now Jerry has a warrant fee on top of that ticket. And in Nevada, there's no grace period, so you automatically go into warrant status. Another wonderful thing about our state is that if you're in warrant status, you have to pay the warrant fees before you're allowed to begin payment on the original fine. Jerry was not able to do that. Jerry was driving his friend's, he didn't know he was in warrant status, driving a friend's car who herself had some challenges with tickets, and he gets pulled over. Jerry, our 70-something-year-old veteran, is arrested and taken to jail. That is what we don't want to happen. There's a misconception sometimes that there are certain communities or certain younger people who are experiencing this, but I tell you, this crosses age, it crosses gender, it crosses political party, it crosses religious party. It affects all of us. Next slide, please. What are some of the consequences when people don't pay? I just shared with you Jerry's story. Oftentimes, traffic fines double. There are collection costs if it's turned over to collections, additional fees, additional money, and that is what we're working to eliminate. So why is this happening? Why does this happen? It's ability of local governments to raise revenue, aversion to taxes. But a very interesting thing happened with our federal government. There was something we call Law Enforcement Assistance Administration, which was established as a result of the Safe Streets Act. Oh, I'm sorry, this was Nick's slide. I'm just going on and on. Nick was gonna present this one. That agency was established to help states, to provide funding to states for their criminal justice systems. It provided grants to states and helped them with funding their criminal justice system. But as a result of recessions, as a result of budget cuts, that was eliminated. And so states were no longer getting that federal funding to support their court system. And so what did we have to do? They're relying on fine and fee revenue. Point of interest, since the inception of the administrative assessment in 1983, it has been raised 8 times. It started out as, was it $5 or $10? I think it was $10. It is now anywhere from $35 to $120. So I'll let you get back on your soapbox.
So an organization that we work with closely out of Alabama Appleseed, conducted a robust survey about fines and fees and their impact on individuals who were assessed them. More than 8 of 10 reported giving up necessary items like rent, food, childcare, car payments. We see that here in Nevada. About 45% of those surveyed had lost their license because they were unable to pay costs. Now in Nevada, and we'll talk about this in a minute, we have recently ended debt-based driver's license suspension. It is a practice that was common across the country, and as we got more information, states across the country are quickly getting rid of it. I'm from northern Nevada myself, but I would imagine that most of you drive to work and to where you take your kids, and the loss of your driver's license makes it very difficult for you to make the money to pay back what you owe. People tend to drive then without their driver's license, which is a very negative safety impact. You're not insured if you are not licensed. And then we had nearly half said they had spent time in jail for failure to pay these very minor fines and fees.
And I want to make a point here. The next slide you're going to see is about some of the legislation that we worked on with the last session. You'll see Assembly Bill 116, which decriminalized minor traffic violations, which we've heard from people saying that it's just going to lessen the consequences that people have and possibly just make it so people just going to ignore tickets. We have not found that to be true. We being advocacy organizations in Nevada, had attempted to pass legislation to decriminalize minor traffic violations since 2013. It never passed. 4 different times that legislation died. Finally, it passed in this last legislative session. And what we believe the difference was is there was so much support from the law enforcement community, there was support from district attorneys, and there was support, bipartisan support, from some of the organizations that we mentioned earlier. And why is that? Officers who worked with us told us that spending time arresting people for infractions like having an expired vehicle registration, having a broken taillight, took them away from taking hardened criminals and violent criminals off the street. It took up some of their time. For an officer to arrest someone, stop someone, arrest them, tow their vehicle, transport them to jail, the cost in an officer's salary, this was a Metro Police officers, anywhere from $134 to $146 per day per officer. Imagine that money. That's coming out of our budget. And it's officers are taking their time out of their day to arrest someone on something as minor as having an expired vehicle registration or a broken taillight. And so we believe this legislation passed because we now had the support of the law enforcement community. We now had the support of district attorneys. We had support even from some judges who said, we want to do something different. And so I mentioned Assembly Bill 116. Nick mentioned earlier, driver's license suspension bill. We were successful in ending debt-based driver's license. And what that meant is people were going to jail, as I mentioned earlier, having warrants and going to jail, losing their licenses because they simply could not pay a traffic ticket. You may hear of a case that recently happened in North Las Vegas, where a gentleman had several tickets for speeding, and he killed himself and 8 other people in a traffic collision. Why is that? Why do I bring that up? Because that gentleman had his traffic tickets reduced down most of the time to the illegal parking. And as Nick mentioned earlier, what happens when that happens? They don't get the points in their license. That is a person we want off the street. That person was a hazard to public safety. Yet he was able to get his tickets reduced down to illegal parking, and he stayed on the street. And as a result of that, he killed himself and 8 other people. Versus someone who gets a traffic warrant, a ticket for an expired vehicle registration or broken taillight. In many cases, those are the people who are losing their licenses simply because they could not pay. Not someone like this gentleman who had been speeding, who was a threat to public safety. So that's the work that we do. We want to make this system fair. We want to make it equitable. We want to get the people who are dangerous drivers and who are danger to society off the street. And we want to make it so that people who want to pay their tickets and who have just minor infractions, as we all sometimes do, we want to make sure that they can be accountable and that they can pay their tickets and they can make sure that they're getting to work, that they're getting their children to school. That's all. Let me see. Do we have any more slides? I'll let Nick tell you what we all can do and how we can work together.
Yes, so we took a look at all the courts, local courts data, and we looked at the total number of traffic citations. We looked at the population served, and your court, the Laughlin Justice Court, serves just over 10,000 residents in the greater Laughlin area. That's in their jurisdiction. You see the traffic totals there, citation totals for the last 3 years. You fall just slightly above average for the state, which suggests, and which makes sense being a border town and on the way to somewhere. We don't find that alarming. It suggests that traffic enforcement here is not overzealous. Some of our rural communities have over 3 traffic tickets per resident. Suggests that there may be some sort of speed trap going on, and there may be some revenue. Searchlight is indeed has over 3 tickets per resident, right? And so when we see something like that, it's alarming. We feel like we should be figuring out a way to make the road safer instead of giving out so many tickets. Laughlin, while it does have a decent amount of traffic tickets, is about average with the state. And then you can see on the right-hand side, I wanted you to be able to see how your court's operating, right? So you have about 5,500 to 7,000 traffic tickets a year, just over 400 misdemeanor cases, and then 190 felonies. So the court is doing predominantly traffic cases. That is the case for most courts, right? And so what we're interested in learning from residents in these rural communities, from the boards, and from the survey that we are offering is, are there pain points? We don't have a unified court system, right? So every court chooses to, there's some standards, but every court kind of operates on its own. And nobody's experience getting a traffic ticket is ever like, oh, it was great, I want another one. But, if you went in, did the judge work with you to reduce the fine and fee into something that you could work? Was community service offered? If so, was it reasonable, right? There's a difference between volunteering in the summer somewhere where it's air conditioned, picking up trash on the side of the road when it's 110 degrees. And we find very different operations in each court. So in us going around the state and talking to individuals, we're trying to find courts that are doing it the best so that we can make them models. We're trying to find courts that may be doing things that are causing problems for their residents when they get these tickets, that they're just not aware other courts are doing different, so that we can make those suggestions, right? And we want to make sure that any issues that may exist, we do address, because we are in Carson City. We do push legislation, and as we said earlier, and I grew up in Douglas County. I went to a school with 200 kids in it. Nobody came and asked us what was going on, or how this legislation would impact us, what we think we might need. And we just don't want to do that anymore. We want to make sure, and we hope to get full rooms some places, empty rooms some places. We'll see how it goes. But we're going to put ourselves out there to make sure that there's an opportunity for people who don't live in Reno and Las Vegas to drive some of these policies to help us make our courts better. I don't think anyone believes that government is perfect and cannot be improved. So that is really our goal here.
And though I did not grow up in Nevada, I was raised in a very small rural town. Some of you may have heard of it. It was called Eagle Mountain. It no longer exists. It's now a ghost town, but it was situated about 60 miles east of Indio and about 60 miles west of Blythe. We had a population of about 4,500 people, if that. And as Nick said, I don't ever remember, it was in Riverside County, I don't ever remember anybody coming to our little town and asking us what we thought, what we needed in our little town when they were considering making laws and passing legislation and policy. Nobody ever asked us. And so that's also something that informs me wanting to go through our state and make sure every Nevadan's voice is heard, whether they agree, whether they don't agree. We all are important. We all live here. We all pay taxes here. We're all affected by legislation that gets passed. We're affected by local policy. We're affected by local ordinance. And it's important, I think it's important that all Nevadans, we hear from them and we hear their input when we're working on and advocating for this legislation. So what is it that the town board, what is it that residents of Laughlin can do to help us? As Nick mentioned, we have a very short survey, not really, but it should take you about 20 minutes. We have a survey that we're asking people to take, and we're offering a $25 gift card for doing that. I will send Ms. Tammy the link, who has been so wonderful. Thank you again for all of your help in getting us started with this. We want to hear from people. It is a way that people can share their experiences with us and also tell us what they think we could be doing differently. We do advocate for legislation. We work on legislation, and we want to hear from people in this city. We want to hear from people across the state to help us decide and inform our agenda and decide what we're going to work on. You can host community events. We have Ms. Diane tomorrow who was decided, she called me. And this is, I'm going to share a very brief story about Ms. Diane. You all know her. She got the email from Tammy, and she shot me an email and said, I do not agree with what you people are trying to do. Making traffic violations civil is just going to make it so people only get a ding on their credit. They're not going to want to pay. And I listened to her because she had every right to feel that way. And she had every right to have her opinion validated. And so I listened to her. And we listened, and we talked for almost 2 hours. I listened to her, she listened to me. The result of that is Diane decided that she's hosting her own meeting tomorrow to talk about this issue, and she's inviting her neighbors so that we can all hear from them. And so other people can do that too. Host a community event, host an informational event at your home, community center. Share this information on social media. We're all using social media. I heard about a wonderful Facebook group earlier today regarding some of the issues on the water. Share it on social media. If you have a website, share it on the website. We would greatly appreciate that. But just like Constable Jordan here, call us. He gave us his card, invited us to come to his office tomorrow, and we certainly plan to do that. Nick and I will both leave our cards. We will leave our information. Feel free to call us. Feel free to ask us questions. Feel free to not really yell at us and tell us what you think, but we do want to hear from you. We want to hear from members of the board. We want to hear from members of this city. And thank
Lisa,
you.
I would also just ask if you had an opportunity, if you're going to be here tomorrow, maybe provide that information to Jackie Whalen had to leave. She's our director of the chamber.
Okay.
But inherent in that would be if you're doing a survey and there's a gift card available, all of the employees in the casinos, maybe their input, although a lot of them are not necessarily residents, but you may find some. So if you can put it in with the properties, they have the majority of. You would probably get a lot of input, especially if there's like a $25 gift card.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will get her information and leave our information with her.
Tammy has Jackie's info for the chamber.
Yep, our office can help coordinate any connection and yep.
Nick, I don't know if you wanted to close out with anything. If not, I'll just again say thank you for having us, and thank you for listening, and we are happy to answer any questions or hear any concerns that you might have.
And then,
Okay.
so then do you want to open it to public comments?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public who would like to say anything regarding to this program that these individuals might be able to answer for you? Okay. Anything from the board?
What, we left everybody speechless? Nobody has questions?
Yeah.
We did it again, Nick. We did it
Thank
again.
you.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, were you going to speak? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Okay, once again, Jenny Smith, Smith, 2830 La Palma Drive, Laughlin, Nevada. I get what you're saying. However, in my mind, I feel like, why is this fee different than all the fees we get on our utility bills or our phone bills, or the resorts have all the fees? And they are taxes, I get it, but it's a way around it being a tax. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. If you want to address that.
Yeah, I would love to. So the difference is with the criminal justice system is we don't, I mean, you can argue that if you are speeding or if you have a broken taillight, you're willfully engaging with the system, but that is not the same as signing up for, say, a cell phone. It is not, or staying in a resort. We also, as a Fines and Fees Justice Center, focus solely on fines and fees in the criminal justice system. Now, I would love an organization that would go get all the fees out of all of our bills. I think that's a noble effort that could save a lot of people a lot of money. Lastly, all of those resort fees, those taxes, those are passed by a 2/3 majority or in the state. So like the resort fees are they have to be passed in with like a tax, as where the fees that the court adds do not, they just need a simple majority, or they use the inherent power of the court. They don't need any legislative, county commission, or board authority. A court can just assess these fees as it chooses, as where the tax for the room tax is something that is goes through a legislative process with public input.
And public representation from their legislators to either vote for it or not vote for it. The difference in what they're delineating is that the courts can do as they please. And that's what they've been doing, is raising those fees over time. And the impetus behind that, I think, has predominantly been the fact that it has been a lack of funding, and municipalities have found other ways to create revenue, is what you're saying, predominantly.
Exactly. And also, the majority of these fees in the criminal legal system are assessed against people who are not able to pay them. And when adding all of these additional fees becomes a barrier to paying the fine and the accountability.
And statistically, for your roadshow, it would be helpful if you also had the numbers and the data when you're doing each court, like you did with us, about what our courts are paying to try and collect those uncollectibles.
Oh my goodness.
If you could get that data, that would be a big impetus and
Yes.
a lot of information behind your argument.
Absolutely. And let me just say this regarding data. It has been one of the hardest things to be able to get from our courts, because a lot of the times they don't have that data. They don't have that. We do have some examples of other courts around the country that are charging $1.15 to collect $1.13, and it's counterproductive. It's counterproductive. So maybe our Laughlin Justice Court will be one of the first who can help us get some of that data.
Our judge will kill me. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. What's next? Let's see. Receive a report from Tanya Brown-Worth of the Laughlin Library. Okay, receive a report from the Laughlin School System regarding status and programs and activities. Nope. Announcements of upcoming neighborhood meetings and county or community meetings and events. Nothing?
And just the coffee with a cop next month. That's going to be a great one.
Yep.
So.
Okay. And
Gino will be there.
So we have planning and zoning on UC 22-0064, the American Legion post number 60, which was a use permit and design review. There was no notice of final action at the time of our posting. And as well as, let's see, UC 210753, County of Clark administrative use permits. And let's see, were these the conditions of approval on that? Do I need to read those into the record? Okay. And so as posted were the conditions of approval. Okay. That was Department of Aviation, still pertains to that. And let's see, general business. None?
I have nothing.
And then we are open now for item number 8, which is comments by the general public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public about matters relevant to the board's jurisdiction. No vote may be taken on a matter not listed on the posted agenda. So comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please step up to the speaker's podium, state your name and address, and spell your last name for the record. If any member of the board wishes to extend the length of presentation, this will be done by the chair or the board by majority vote. Again, this is now open to the public to discuss anything that is within the jurisdiction of this board, but was not posted on today's agenda. So if there's anyone who'd like to speak, please step up to the podium. Seeing none, I'll go ahead. Our next meeting date is April 26th of 2022. If there is a second call meeting, I don't think we have anything for now, do we?
There will be one zoning item.
There is going to be?
Yes.
Okay. So just for the board to be prepared for April 26th.
Yep.
Okay, and then I will go ahead and call for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second and a fourth probably. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.